Also, we're going to be talking about matters arising from the call on the Controller and Accountant General, Mr. Kwesi Kwening Bozompim, to resign following his picking up forms to run for MP-ship for Akim Swedro. Now, we've heard about lawsuits from, for example, the MP of South Dai, Mr. Honorable Dafia Mekpo, asking him to resign immediately. We've heard from some of our legal brains, one of whom is here in the studios with us to shed more lights on his position and on what other people have made of this entire situation, whether or not a civil servant can, while still in office, run for a political office. So you're welcome to the show. Connect with us online and we'll get our discussion started now. First of all, Happy New Year, gentlemen. I don't think I've seen either of you this year.
Many happy returns.
How are you doing?
By His grace.
By His grace.
We
thank God. Good morning to you. So our first guest in the studio, Andrew Kofi Japamesa, Deputy Minister of Energy and MP for 2nd D. And I hope that this new year brings you all the very best that you pray and wish for.
Thank you. I wish you the same.
Thank you.
I guess my first hurdle is to deal with my primaries, which is coming off on the 27th of January.
Yes.
And so let me extend my greetings to my esteemed party officials in the 2nd D constituency, Council of Elders and Patrons, the chairman and his executives, coordinators and police station executives. I wish all of you Happy New Year.
We wish you all the best
to
with
all
that.
Our cherished viewers as well.
We wish you all the best with that. So it's on the 27th. You have about
2 more weeks. Just
12 days or so. You have 12 days to go.
Yes.
It's going well, I hope.
Yes, it is.
All right.
I've been in the constituency since Thursday.
Okay.
Came back yesterday evening, get some office work done through to Wednesday, and then I go back to complete the rest of the week.
In 2nd D?
Yeah.
Well, I'll be coming there is it December this year, to do what do you call it? The masquerade ball. What's it called?
Oh. Well, that's Takrady activity.
It doesn't happen in 2nd D.
2nd D is the Potomanto Festival.
Potomanto Festival?
Yeah, which is part of the Christmas activities. And of course, you need to come there during Easter.
Okay.
Where we have the famous Yesu Asor Festival,
Yesu Asor
activities
Festival.
Also encompassing the masqueraders as well to celebrate the risen Christ.
I see.
Yeah, and 2nd D is a place to be.
If you will sponsor my masquerade outfit, I'll be there.
Not a problem at all. Consider it done.
All right. Also in the studio today, we have our favorite lawyer in the house who's trending currently, lawyer Ediji Tamaklo, Director, Legal Affairs, National Democratic Congress. Good morning.
Good morning.
You're welcome to the show.
Thank you. And good morning to my
Morning,
This weekend, I have seen so many photos of you. I'm used to a particular photo of you, your formal photo. But this weekend, I've seen so many photos of you on Twitter, on Instagram, and everywhere. In fact, it was this weekend that I followed you on Instagram. He has a. Have you checked him out on Instagram?
Unfortunately,
you should check out his fashion.
I don't know.
It's no joke. But gentlemen, did you watch the football match last night?
I did.
How was it?
I did. It was a heartbreaker.
Oh.
The support for our senior national team has waned over the past couple of years, and we're all hoping that some revival, would the occasion this time around. Unfortunately, I guess that the goal that was disallowed took out a lot of steam from the team. Subsequently, we managed to equalize, and rather than keeping focus for the 90 minutes, we lost it at a point, and we were punished for it. I don't want to go into a situation where we will start our mathematical calculations.
We're almost already there.
Oh, no, I don't think so. We still have 2 games to play. Egypt is a pretty competitive side,
yes,
but we've beaten them before.
Yes, but we lost to Cape Verde. It was a different team.
I know. Cape Verde of all people.
Yes.
But I guess that they were a strong team. Their performance was really far better than ours, if you ask me. But let's hope for the best as regards the team. I mean, the matches between.
So you're not so heartbroken. You're still very.
Well, yesterday was heartbreaking. I was hoping that we were going to win. especially the team that we're playing with. We should have walloped them convincingly. But it didn't happen. But I'm saying that we still have 2 games. Let's wish them the best. Let them be urged that they have our support and to go out to do Ghana proud on Thursday. I'm hoping to watch that game. And then hopefully their Mozambique game as well, they win. Yeah.
May the Lord be with us.
Yeah.
Did you watch the match or you were watching Date Rush?
I watched it the till end because I had to catch a flight to Accra, and I had to rush home to watch. But I was monitoring the commentary. I'm a very stubborn lover of the Black Stars, and so such occasions usually bring a lot of heartbreaks. The night was good, the way the game ended. And I'm very confident that, like we say, the Black Stars tend to be slow starters. And so against Egypt on Thursday, I know they will deliver.
When you say slow starters, do you mean when they are playing a game? So yesterday we started slow.
No, in tournament. I think
so,
the last Nations Cup, our first game was not good. Subsequently, we picked, and the last one became problematic. So this time, I'm hoping that we'll pick, and then we'll win the remaining 2 matches. That's the only thing that can comfort Ghanaians under the circumstance. You know, when you were, you and Cookie, a caller was asking what the president was doing. I mean, that was quite hilarious.
He was very upset when he was asking that question.
But he asked what he was doing in Ivory Coast.
Stadium.
But for whatever it's worth.
You see, I monitored social media and I saw some comments and I was surprised.
What comment?
Relating to what the president was doing there. Eli Clem Agbamava posted something.
That Eli is your mate?
No, he was a year ahead of me in law school, but he was way my junior in Adesanya.
Oh, okay.
You know, look, opening ceremony. The president of Ivory Coast cannot extend the invitation to the president of Ghana to come and attend. And if he does attend, that constitutes a crime for people to be lampooning him all over the place. Why do we do this to ourselves as a people? Heads of states have not attended opening ceremonies of tournaments before. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is the first. So because of the politics, we demean the office and the occupant of our presidency for that. We should rise up above some of these pettiness. Because it doesn't help nation building in any way. President, when you know what time he came back? 12 midnight was when he arrived back in Ghana. You think he wouldn't have preferred to sleep?
Well,
that is a relationship that we are building amongst our sister countries in Africa, West Africa. And so if he attends the opening ceremony of the CAN 2003, people sit on social media and say all sorts of nasty stuff. To what end? I was very disappointed. A lawyer of no mean repute. He wanted to contest the NDC presidential primaries.
Eli is not here, so it's not fair.
I saw his post.
No, it's not fair.
Let me hold on.
I heard for the first time on the call.
That's fine. I would gladly withdraw. It's fine. It's not a problem.
I believe that you see some of these things for whatever it's worth. Don't let.
No, I get it. I get it. No, not a problem. You know me.
Yeah.
If I'm gracious enough to withdraw, and I consider that it's not here. So it's fine. No, it's fine. It's fine. I will not pursue it any further.
All right. Let's come to the matter.
But I think it was completely unfair.
Okay,
for the kind of comments that people made about the president.
I think that, not to hold brief for them, but when the Black Stars perform abysmally the Ghanaians just get upset, and then sometimes.
But even the Black Stars haven't even played.
Sometimes
this was the opening ceremony.
Oh, this was before the match.
Before the Ghana Black Stars match.
In that case, let's come back to our matter on the table this morning, and move on from the Black Stars, because the Black Stars can inflame passions.
You know, sometimes the politics that we do is a problem. I recall vividly, right? Somewhere around 2014, the World Cup or so. Nanado posted something on his Facebook page, and I'll just read so you can see to it. He says, quote, "No water, no electricity, no petrol, no money, no jobs, no mercy, no World Cup victory." I mean, that was the level at which Nanado, then in opposition, could trivialize the question of even the victory of our national team. I mean, that was the level at which you were doing politics. So you come down. Let's deal with these other issues.
I haven't said that no one is entitled to comment. I'm coming. So please. Because you are mixing apples with oranges.
No.
Please. Making a comment about the World Cup and Ghana's performance and the economic circumstances at the time is completely different from touting the president for attending the opening ceremony. Completely.
All right.
He wasn't accusing Mr. Mahama of attending the
World
Cup.
I think people wanted to associate the president with his quote unquote bad luck, and that he shouldn't have been there. That was but for whatever it's worth.
Did you see him at the game?
Let's move on from that, gentlemen. Let's move on from that. See, the Black Stars do this to us all the time. So let's move on from that and talk about our energy issues. So there has been an imposition increase or VAT on non-lifeline consumers or above lifeline consumers. Now, it came at a time when we were experiencing power outages and Ghanaians were calling for the government to call what was happening, do so, and provide a schedule so that we'll be able to know how to plan our lives and our businesses. Now, I think I'll be right to say that there's always a social cost on implementing new policy or new programs. Honorable, can you tell us what the government's consideration was in deciding to implement this new VAT on residential consumers?
Well, I'm trying to pull the letter, and if you'd be kind enough to...
I can read it to you.
Oh, no, I've read it. I just wanted to make specific references to especially the notion that...
Would you like me to give you the letter?
Government is... Yeah, if you have a copy.
Yes,
fine.
here you go.
Government is imposing a new tax.
Can you see?
Yes, I can.
All
because clearly from the introduction, it is obvious that the first schedule of the Value Added Tax Act 2013, Act 870, was the law that imposed VAT on electricity consumption. This law was passed in 2013. For some reason, a part of it was implemented relative to commercial consumers of electricity. It was this year that the finance minister indicated that the component relating to residential consumers was going to be implemented. And of course, the rationale was outlaid in the 2024 budget. We all know that we have signed on to an IMF program, which then has a fundamental requirement of attaining some debt sustainability, stabilizing your economy, cutting your expenditure as much as possible, and raising sufficient enough revenue to meet your obligations. And so government felt that if this law is already in place and a component of it had been implemented, then it stood to reason that the other component, rolling it out, may help in raising some revenue so that recourse to debt as a means of financing our expenditure is minimized. Okay, and so that really, if you read the letter, was the basis for directing the Ghana Revenue Authority to work with ECG and NEDCO to ensure the implementation of the law, not the imposition that already been passed as far back as President Mahama's era. It's the implementation of a component of it that was delayed. And you can see clearly on the screen, 2013 Act 870. But you see, the talk that we were experiencing outages and the call for some schedule came as a huge surprise to me. Obviously, the Akufo-Addo government has done so well in managing our energy sector, such that even a day or two's outage generates public outcry. For me, it was refreshing because clearly Ghanaians have moved away from the 4 years where it became the norm of encountering a protracted power outage. People lost businesses. People had to study with candles and torchlights. Surgeries were conducted with phone batteries. In this country, we lived it. But for the past 7 years, we've become accustomed to electricity availability, albeit on occasion taking it out for maintenance. You recall in 2021, my minister, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, indicated the Dumsiesi, where we had to turn off some power for Gridco to string some lines. Pictures were made available for Ghanaians to see, and I wonder who would have expected their kit and kin to string power or lines with live power. So the 2 days, if you like, of outage that generated, oh, Dumso is back, especially for my brothers in the NDC. I saw the comments by my very good friend Ama Kofi Boa, my junior brother John Jenapo, vociferously articulating some need for an outage. I asked myself that, what really was the basis?
Well, we subsequently got an explanation that it was actually because of a certain debt which was owed to the West African gas pipeline.
I spoke extensively on this subject matter, actually even on your network.
Yes.
And indicated. And so, following from what you just, your intervention, was there a basis for the call for a schedule?
Well, there was a call for an explanation.
Yeah, but the explanation has been given. I'm saying that beyond the call for the explanation, people were calling for schedule. Why? Because you give them fodder for political equalization. Akufo-Addo's time to do so schedule. But this was an event. And of course, if it was private funds that were being used to pay, I'm not sure would have gotten there.
Perhaps the trouble there was that the explanation ought to have come before the lights went
But nobody expected, because we're still engaging WAPCO. GMPC had actually paid them 3 million on the 27th of December.
Before the lights went off?
Way before. The lights went off on the 9th. And had actually advanced another 2 million on the morning of the 9th. We're engaging them. I personally spoke to the chief executive of WAPCO. That, look, these sums have come because of the holidays and all that. We haven't been able to obtain the requisite approval from Ministry of Finance to pay. And so grant us a few days. Then late in the evening, we got information from our Systems Control Center at Gridco that WAPCO had indicated that they were turning off the taps. And so we scrambled around, and then next day, we got approval from Ministry of Finance, communicated it to them, and they turned it back on by 8 p.m. of the night of 10th. Yet people were calling for a schedule. Why?
Okay.
That's the question that I asked. So you see, Ghanaians are wide awake. We have indicated consistently over the years that priority, of our energy is key to the Akufo-Addo government. Unlike during Mr. Mahama's era. And it wasn't because we lack generation. Anybody who tells
capacity,
you, please, no, wait. I'm talking the period that you and I slept in darkness for 4 years.
Okay.
It wasn't because there was lack of generation. Anybody who tells you that, tell that person, I'm saying that person is lying.
What was it?
Because we had sufficient enough generation. It was fuel. that we couldn't afford to buy. When the West African gas pipeline was fractured, Mr. Muhammad told us, his finance minister, Seteke, my very good senior, told us that the West African gas pipeline had fractured and so there was no gas flowing in from Nigeria. There were alternatives. They could have bought liquid fuel. Did they? So the data is there. Unfortunately, I dropped my bag off. I would have showed you actual. And you will see that between 2015, 2016, 17, when it peaked, excess capacity peaked because of the contractual agreement that they had put in place to resolve a problem that was financial.
All right.
They contracted more power, said that today, our outstanding obligations to the IPPs, 35% of it is attributable to excess capacity. Yet they have the audacity to talk.
All right, back to the matter. Back to the matter. Thank you for the explanation about what happened in the past.
Yeah.
But on the implementation of this new VAT, now you've explained to us that it's not new, of course. It's not a new policy, but it has now been implemented.
Yes.
And my question is, implementing it at this time, when Ghanaians are already crying for being loaded with too many taxes, must come at a social cost to you.
It's a concern.
Yes.
I agree. But we need to look at the entire scope of what it is that government revenues are and government expenditures are. I just cited to you the debt profile for energy sector. 1.7 billion. That's been ring-fenced that we are negotiating with the IPPs to pay over a period of time.
Are you hoping to generate that revenue by this tax?
No, so I'm making the point that that has to be paid for. A government is managing the entire resources of our country. When there's a shortfall, it has to go and borrow. We know what debt has done to our economy. The amount of money that were borrowed to pay down the energy sector debt prior to COVID, the amount of money that was borrowed to clean the banking sector mess that Mr. Mahama had left.
Yes, but while all this debt is crippling the economy.
I'm making the point that, so we all ought to take a step back and ask.
Yes, but the taxes
that
are
if
also
government doesn't raise the revenue to pay the obligations, then he has to go and borrow. Is that an option under the present circumstances? Obviously not. And so we need to look within and try and raise some revenue internally to then pay for these obligations.
I understand that. But
yes.
My question is, at this time, when Ghanaians have already been overburdened by so many taxes, at this time, is this the right time to implement this particular policy?
I have said to you that it's a concern. What it means is that I feel, because I'm a Ghanaian too, I live here, I pay some of the taxes as well. It's not as if to say when you are in government, then you are isolated from payment of taxes. It's a concern, huge one.
Do you pay electricity bills?
Of course I do.
Okay.
It's a huge concern. I agree, 100%. But I'm saying that as a people, we need to take a step back and evaluate the entire scope of our economy and see the obligations that government has to meet, especially in the light of this IMF program where we indicated that when we go back, we know the conditions. Raise revenue, raise revenue, raise revenue. And so government has evaluated all the taxes that are available and said, look, let's see as much as possible, not try to introduce more new taxes, but roll out some that has been in abeyance for a while, including this one that was passed in 2013, so that at least we can raise some additional revenue to meet our obligations. Of course, this is a government that has reviewed, abolished many taxes. Indeed, and in fact, even when we came into government, some taxes that were introduced that subsequently, because of the response or feedback that we got from the public, was reviewed, has been done. And so let's look at the rollout. Let's see whether it will impact negatively further on the people. And the government can take a decision, but at this point,
it will impact negatively on the people.
Yeah, of course, because it definitely
because we're taking more money out of our pockets.
I agree, 100%. But we ought to all burden share, like the finance minister has indicated, to try and resolve this economic situation that we find ourselves in. Generate the revenue to pay our bills, so that government can continue to provide a service.
What about reduction in expenditure?
But significant expenditure cuts have been rolled out by this government in the 2023 and 2024 budgets.
Like what?
a host of them. And like I said, if I had privy to the topics, we would probably give you clear indications of, if you permit me, you can just go online and pull out the expenditure cuts that this government has rolled out. A huge chunk of them, okay, such that our economy is beginning to pick up. Our revenues have been increasing to meet our expenditure. We haven't been borrowing as much.
We hear you when you say that.
You know, so
we hear you when you say that. But as a regular Ghanaian watching us right now, who sees that their taxes just keep going up? Salaries are not going up. Cost of living is going up. Taxes are increasing. The Ghanaian now has less and less and less money in their pocket. So when you say that we are doing better, as a government, you say we're doing better, we hear you. But as Ghanaians paying the money, we don't feel that we are doing better. In fact, we feel much less, like our financial strength as Ghanaians, regular Ghanaians, is going down by the day. So when we see the implementation of new taxes, which we agree, well, the policy already existed, but the implementation at this time.
You see, this morning when I was on my way here, I was listening to Joy FM, and they were part of their news segment talking about the Sky Group chief executive and some comments that he had made during his Thanksgiving service over the weekend.
Yeah.
Clear admission that the global economy, okay, has in 2023 impacted businesses, impacted lives, impacted our way of life, okay, and clearly that has affected our country as well. So there's no doubt about the difficulty that we have in our economy. His Excellency the President has admitted it on countless occasions. The Finance Minister has articulated it strongly that yes, we are not in normal times. Of course, the rationale for the decisions that government took, that then has led to where we are. We can have time to debate it, okay?
All right.
But I'm saying that in all of this, the end game is to try and revive our economy, stimulate growth. And how you do that is to control your expenditure, what the government is doing, and to raise some revenue to fund goods and services that the public needs. Invest in the right sectors of the economy to try and stimulate growth, create employment, and revive the economy for the good of all of us.
All right,
and that's exactly what we are working to achieve.
So in the year 2016, Mr. Akufo-Addo and Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia told Ghanaians that they are going to move the Ghanaian economy from taxation to production. It is on this basis that we want to, as it were, evaluate 7 years of these two individuals leading this country. Nothing more, nothing else. Any other thing is just to confuse people. And we need to hold Bawumia and Akufo-Addo accountable. What are the issues? You decided to go for an IMF program in the midst of pervasive corruption, in the midst of mismanagement of the economy, in the midst of wastes. So you had to go to the IMF on a stretcher in an ambulance. Now the IMF is telling you that under the circumstance, we expect you to impose tax on electricity. So instead of apologizing, coming before Ghanaians in ashes, you have decided to rather gaslight them. It won't happen this morning. Look, we told Ghanaians that by going to the IMF program, especially in these states, one, there is going to be quarterly tariff adjustment. They said no, and that's what they are doing. We also said that they are going to impose additional tax burden on Ghanaians. It has seen the light. Not only that, we said government's ability to employ will be limited. All these things are panning out. Now, what are the issues? You have decided for the first time since 2013 to impose tax on how much people buy electricity. Electricity for domestic consumption, electricity for industry, among others. Now, if you look at the letter from Mr. Kenofori, the letter itself is self-explanatory. He said, as a result of the IMF post-COVID program, so it is the IMF that is telling you to impose tax on Ghanaians. What you do is to demonstrate a heart that is apologetic, a heart that is not hearty. That is what you do. But where in this case, in the midst of all of this, look, Ghanaians are wide awake. They know that they have never paid value-added tax on their electricity. But for Akufo-Addo and Bawumia, that is what they know. So no amount of sophistry will change that fact. That today, you have a situation where you are having to impose tax on the electricity. And now you see, if you reference the letter, the only exemption is lifeline
consumers.
What is a lifeline consumer? Somebody who consumes a month 30 Ghana cedis. Now, your electricity a month consumption is it no more than 30 Ghana cedis? So effectively, you are now going to be under the obnoxious tax implementation of Akufo-Addo and Bawumia. So it doesn't matter how you try to confuse Ghanaians by these extraneous things that you decided to introduce into the conversation. Ghanaians watching me this morning, it's a very simple issue. Bawumia, as the chairman of the economic mismanagement team, together with his boss, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, have decided to impose almost 20% value-added tax on your electricity consumption. And so today, if you buy 100 Ghana cedis electricity, but before you even do anything, 21% is taken away value-added. So you are left with how much? Almost 79% Ghana cedis. Of this, other taxes are going to be imposed. You pay for street light, all those. That is the simple thing Bawumia and Akufo-Addo have decided to give you as their New Year gifts. What wrong has Ghanaians done? Now, Akufo-Addo, Bawumia, they have gotten more tax revenue than all administrations since 1992. In the year 2017, without COVID, they made 33 billion in tax revenue. 2018, 39 billion in tax revenue. Now, let's say that 2020 was the COVID year. Now, guess how much they made? In the year 2019, they made 45.6 billion in tax revenue. You would expect, with all the trouble they've created about COVID-19, that with COVID, at least our tax revenue will be lesser than the previous year, correct, when there was no COVID. Even the year of COVID, that is 2020, we made 47 billion Ghana cedi in tax revenue. 2021, post-COVID, we made 57 billion Ghana cedis in tax revenue. 2022, there was no COVID, agreed. We made 75 billion Ghana cedis. Do you know where the problem is coming from? The reckless borrowing. We warned them. If within 4 years, you can take $11 billion of euro bond alone, you have to service that debt. And that is where the Akufo-Addo Bawumia administration got exposed. And because of these tax issues, the amount we're paying on interest, we had to rush back to the IMF. And today, the IMF had asked you to do the DDEP. Ordinary Ghanaians who decided to pay or buy government bonds, this government cannot. And now, do you know the shocking part?
What?
Do you know that this government, as part of the Eurobond roadshow, in the prospectus, deceive, and I want to use the word advisedly, deceive foreign investors that will be producing 500 5,000 barrels of crude every day. And so when foreign investors saw the prospectus and this claim, they decided to buy our bonds, ESLA bonds, among other bonds, Dachin and Co. For the first time in the history of this country, post-1992, this government had defaulted on paying its debt to its external creditors. We are basically begging the Chinese and the Paris Club to forgive or restructure our debt. That is your so-called solid record. But you see now this morning, my senior makes the point that, okay, the issue is not about generation, it was financial. I mean, this is the Deputy Minister of Energy. If you demonstrate this level, either mischief or ignorance or lack of it or both of it, then it pains me. How can you say that the problem was not generation? Because
in the previous
yes,
episode.
One morning we wake up, a ship from nowhere tore the pipeline extracting gas from Nigeria. What will happen to your power plants? Definitely it will create a shortfall. This is the record. Unless
it wasn't a fuel problem.
How could it have been a fuel problem? What is the gas pipeline carrying? Is it not fuel? So if the pipeline is torn, would the fuel come? Would the fuel come? Unless, of course, you are saying it was John Mahama who took the ship to go and destroy the pipeline. But you see, like I always say, leadership is what shows it all. The man, notwithstanding the fact that these were not his cause, in the year 2007 in this country, now, unless, of course, you did not appreciate things then, the MPP assembled men of God to go to Akosombo to pray so that water will come into the dam to resolve the energy crisis. We have had energy crisis in 1999. We've had energy crisis in the year 2007. Do you know the MPP solution there? They sent men of God, and subsequently, in the words of Dr. Reku Brobe, he said they brought toy machines to resolve these are the words of Dr. Reku Brobe. But you see, the interesting part of this conversation is that when you come on TV and you say that Akosombo has an installed capacity of 1,000 megawatts, and so in the year 2014, we had 1,000 megawatts, then you don't understand the problem of our energy. And you should not be in that office. Do you know why? Because there has never been a time that Akosombo gave us 1,000 megawatts. Two, if you are saying that today, car power, if we switch car power of now, they'll be doom so. Right now, if you put off AXA, they'll be doom so. That is generation. And so, look, President Kufuor started the initiative of building the Bui Dam, right? Bui is supposed to give us 300 megawatts. We had never produced 300 megawatts from the time it was set up. So that is installed capacity. But what is available to you? We does sometimes in peak hours, 94 megawatts. And that is why there's always a difference between installed capacity and available capacity. Because whereas the thing is installed, by reason of many other factors, you will not get it every time. For instance, Akosombo, when was the last time they used all the turbines? They don't. So whereas the installed capacity is 1,000, you don't have that. So why not even explain this to ordinary Ghanaians to appreciate the difference? You sit on national television and create the impression that the 1,000 Akosombo this thing has always been available. In any case, let's come here. What has been the use of Akufo-Addo Bawumia in our energy sector? What have they done? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. In fact,
nothing?
Yes. Absolutely nothing. Do you know what they have rather done?
What have they done?
Saddle the sector with debt. Independent power producers alone are owed $2 billion. Do you know $2 billion? That's about 24 billion Ghana cedis. That is what they have done. Do you know how much they owe Talo? Do you know how much Ghana Gas owes all the aggregators within that sector? Huge sums of money. What they have decided to do is to use PR to PR themselves out of the 1 year left. But the fact is there, Ejapa. The fact is that you have mismanaged the energy sector with debt. And you know what they have done? They have adopted a firefighting approach. When they see the fire, they will go and quench it. Then another fire starts, they will go and quench it. So today it was WAPCO. The last time, it was independent power producer that threatened. The last time, it was Suno Asogli. So quickly, they had to go and give some $30 million. That's basically what they are doing. Look, the visionary John Dramani Mahama introduced what is known as ESLA. Do you know how much ESLA alone had given this incompetent, corrupt administration? In excess of 20 billion Ghana cedi. Do you know what they've used the money for? They decided to use the money for ESLA bonds and squandered the money. See, in 2019, they themselves came out with what is known as the Energy Sector Recovery Program. Go and read the details of that recovery program. Do you know that as we speak, if ECG generates 100 megawatts of power, almost 70% is lost. Now, if that happens, how will you be able to solve the problem within the sector? Two, do you know that we introduced what is known as the cash waterfall system? What is it? ESLA receivables come, and the other, receivables. You need a formula on how to distribute the money. Some of the independent power producers have accused government of favoritism. They'll look at you and decide how much to pay you and that kind of thing. That is how you have mismanaged the energy sector with debt. And instead of being sober, tell Ghanaians.
I want us to talk about this VAT.
Yes,
okay?
yes.
Now, if you read the letter from Ken Ofori-Atta to ECG and NEDCO, he mentions that it's in line with Section 35 and 37 of the first schedule of Act 870. Who introduced Act 870?
The NDC passed the law.
What was the reason for the introduction of this VAT?
In 2013, when this law was passed, government took a political decision, listen carefully, that it did not make sense to impose tax on electricity consumers.
But it didn't make sense to introduce the policy at the time.
I mean, policies are done for whatever is worth. But if the law exists and it's not implemented, right, of what use is it?
But it's implemented now because it was introduced by the Mahama administration.
No. Read the letter.
The part of the letter which talks about Act 870 is
but
point 3.
Read the full letter. You can't, you see.
Okay, so as part of the implementation.
You've had the benefit of being in the law school. Documents are read as a
I'm reading from the beginning.
Good.
As part of the implementation of the government's medium-term revenue strategy and the IMF-supported post-COVID-19 program for economic growth.
So that is the reason.
But I'm not done.
So no. I'm telling you that. Hold on. You are trying to.
You said I should read
no,
the whole thing.
You are trying to create an impression that.
No.
Hold on. No, please. I understand this conversation.
Go ahead.
Already on Saturday, I had this banter with Ejapa, speaking through Professor Jampo. Government is saying that. Oh, hold on. Government is saying that. Oh, please.
Let her read it.
Yes, so I am telling her
let her read it.
No, she wanted to create the impression. Oh,
Gentlemen,
please.
calm down.
Calm
down. Gentlemen, calm down. I'll read the whole thing. I'll read the whole thing. I'll read the whole thing.
She's so shameless, it's not funny.
Go ahead, Ediji. Go ahead, Ediji.
The fact is this. You can't confuse Ghanaians with your intervention. Your question. And this one, I am putting it directly to you.
I haven't made an intervention.
No, you have.
I'm merely asking
your
questions.
Your question is extremely mischievous.
What's mischievous
and
about
the
my
question?
question?
Hold on. No.
What's mischievous about my question?
Your question is so mischievous. Do you know why?
Tell
do you
me
know
why
why I'm telling
Tell
you
me
this?
Why.
Because you do know that from 2013, the law on the imposition of tax on value electricity had never been implemented.
Yes.
So does it matter if the law was there?
So
this government, as a
question.
result of the IMF program,
Here's
decided to go and revive a dead law. And you want that to be? You want the one who passed the law to be blamed?
No.
So what is the essence? So that is why in law there's something we call relevant. In this particular conversation, how relevant is your question?
So exactly. So your
relevant is your question?
Listen, Eduji.
Yes.
Your answer to my question will show us whether or not it is relevant.
No, it's not.
So here's the point. And I'm asking this question on behalf of our viewers who are watching.
No. At this point,
Eduji,
the typical
I allowed you to talk.
No, because you see, a typical Ghanaian
who
has 100 Ghana cedis and is buying light is asking, why am I paying a tax now?
Yes,
and
when I was talking to him, I asked him those very specific questions.
An IMF program. So if you ask me, why did Mahama pass the law in 2013? Are you being fair?
It helps for us to understand.
Definitely not.
No, it helps for us to understand. This did not happen in a vacuum. There is history to it. And so your explanation of why the policy was introduced will help us understand whether or not the implementation is relevant at this time. So it appears you are uncomfortable with questions which border on the introduction of the policy.
I prefaced my conversation with this. I prefaced my initial conversation.
So why don't you offer us an explanation?
That the law was passed in 2013.
What do you qualify as a dead law? You just said it was dead law. What is dead law?
Dead law.
Yes.
A law that exists in our statute without its implementation. And the minister himself referenced it in the letter that from 2013, no government had imposed tax on electricity. This is the first time we are doing it since 2013. And so I am saying that the viewer watching me now, who has just bought electricity 100 Ghana cedis, is asking, why has government in 2024, by the letter dated 12th of December 2023, imposing tax on my value, on my electricity? And the simple answer is that the IMF is telling government of Ghana to ramp up its revenue. So government is now looking elsewhere, everywhere, anything that is taxable to place a tax. And one of them is electricity. So the reference to the 2013 legislation is just a ruse. It's complete charade. What is important is that this government needs money like the blood of an Ebola survivor.
And while we understand that,
yes,
I felt that it was important for you to give us an explanation as to why you're not allowing me to answer the question.
I know why you are.
I haven't even asked the question.
Even right from the beginning, I
asked the question.
No, now
so I haven't. Do you know what I'm going to ask you?
Nah, I am telling you that.
You don't know what I'm going to ask.
I consider.
Well, you are setting your own questions and answering them.
Because I understand this.
I haven't asked you a question.
I understand this game.
What are you answering?
The question is
I haven't even asked you the question.
Why the law was passed in 2013? That's why you were asking.
Do you have an explanation to why it was passed?
That is what I'm saying, that at that time, government passed this law. The same government took a policy position not to implement it. And from 2013 until we exited power in 2016, the John Mahama administration never imposed tax on electricity.
For the purposes of education.
Akufo-Addo decided
for
to
the
do
purposes
that.
of education.
Yes.
Can you explain to me why a government would introduce a policy when it has no intentions of implementing it?
Many things come up. So, for instance, under this administration.
And he's answered it for you already. He said it was for politics.
Which one?
He said it was for political decision. I wrote
it's a political decision.
Yes, so it was for politics. That's why they didn't implement it.
Yes, and
put the law in parliament.
Wait, let him answer. Let him answer his question.
Because of politics, decided not to
let
implement
him
it.
Answer the
He's
question.
answered it.
No, let him.
So,
are you going with his
yes,
answer?
I am saying that the John Mahama administration took a political decision, as it were, not to overburden Ghanaians. And it was a sound political decision. Do you disagree with it? You have decided, as a result of corruption, incompetence, to impose tax on electricity. Justify that. No amount of shouting will resolve that.
See,
simple.
Now I've not shouted though, and this your. I don't know whether when you go for your lectures, they tell you that when Mesa is speaking, make reference to shout, and it will put me off. It doesn't. Okay. You've peddled a lot of falsehoods here. Okay. You say lifeline is 30 Ghana cedis.
How much is it?
It's 30 gigawatts.
It's not 50 kilowatts.
Translate it
No,
into cities.
it's 1 gigawatt city.
Translate it
I'm
into
asking you
cities.
a simple question.
Translate it into cities.
a
How much
gigawatt
is the
a
city
city?
worth of
I'm
it?
also interested to know
Yeah,
how much
is the city
how
worth
A
of it?
gigawatt is priced by PURC. I don't know the current rate, but it's not a city. You made a categorical statement that lifeline is 30 Ghana cedis. It's false.
How much is it?
I'm saying it's 30 gigawatts.
Look at this. See, before
Hold on. You sat
show,
here.
I knew the
Please,
issue would come.
I sat here when
so
you spoke.
I specifically
Where did you
spoke
get
to-
your figure
No,
from?
I specifically spoke to my ranking on energy, Jinapo. I sent him a message. What is
do
the
I have
CD
the floor
hold on.
or not?
What is the CD
can't find
equivalent?
it.
You have the floor, however, the question here is...
I'll find the exact figure for you today.
So I asked him.
hold
So
on.
before we end, you give us...
Yes.
No,
So
you
what
said
I did
your
was,
bit, so
what I
he
did was I reached out to him that I wanted to know from the layman conversation that lifeline, how much is it? He said 30 cities.
All right. So he will also get us his figure before the conversation ends. And please don't interrupt him when he's talking.
No, I won't.
You see, he makes reference to tax revenues that the Akufo-Addo government has received over the years, and says that Akufo-Addo has gotten more tax revenue than any other government. He conveniently fails to disclose that indeed and in fact, the total tax revenues that we collect in this country year on year pays for only 3 items. Now, you heard me. Your total tax revenue. I recall quite vividly when we came into government in 2017, when Kenneth Ofori-Atta came to Parliament and read his first budget and said that he was going to introduce the free SHS policy and all the initiatives that the Akufo-Addo government had outlined in its manifesto. My very good friend Henry Druso, then minority leader, stood up and said that where is the fiscal space? 97.3% of your total tax revenue pays wages and salaries, statutory payments, and interest. That's it. Every other item that the government funds is from non-tax revenue and debt. That structure has not changed to date. So if you sit here and make it look as if Akufo-Addo has generated huge sums of money and has used it for something other than payment of wages and salaries of public service workers, statutory payments and interest on the debt that we've contracted since independence. What are you saying? Yet you have the effrontery to tell me that I sit here, don't have information, I speak to matter. Look, Bui Dam does not generate 300 megawatts.
How
It's
much
lying.
does it
It's
generate?
400.
Does it actually generate
It doesn't.
400?
Wait.
that's the
You
point I
said
was making.
you didn't make any point. You said that Bui is a 300 megawatts plant. It's not. It's 400.
How much does it generate?
330. And he says that at some point Bui generated 94 megawatts. Palpable lie. In 2015, Bui, and this is actual demand supply balance, 2015 to 2016.
that
Every
public
power
document?
plant, of course,
Okay.
public document, Energy Commission.
Okay.
Bui generated 330 in 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22.
Over 300.
330. So if he sits here and says Bui generated 94 megawatts, what is he saying? And he makes reference to the damage to the pipeline from Nigeria and says it doesn't affect what?
It affects
Look.
the fuel coming in.
Absolutely. And there are alternative fuels.
So, I mean, what?
I'm saying there are alternative fuels,
Like what?
light crude, DFO, HFO.
Which is good for energy production.
Absolutely, 100%. In fact, most of our plants were powered by these fuels until gas was introduced into the mix. And because gas is cheaper, we have transitioned most of our plants to gas. But they are dual fuel plants. Today, every time that there's a maintenance outage in the gas value chain, and I chair that committee, okay, there is a program to procure liquid fuels to power the plants. So I'm saying that in the period between 2012 and 2016, when we were sleeping in darkness, it was not because we did not have installed generation. I showed you a document when he was speaking on my phone. It's a World Bank document. It clearly shows you our installed generation capacity from 2012 till date, our peak demand from that period till date, and the additions that Mr. Mahama and his group of people in government added on to from 2015 to date. You saw the red line.
Yeah.
You saw that we had not consumed, in fact, most of the additions until 2021. You saw it. But we're paying for it. The 2 billion that he makes reference to as debt that Akufo-Addo has piled, 35% of that is excess capacity as a result of plants that Mr. Mahama and his government contracted. So who has put debt on the people of Ghana? Who? Yet they talk. Look, I'm very clear in my mind, okay, that Ghanaians voted for us to solve problems. And we are working to solve the problems. It's not a question of firefighting any energy sector issues. We have ring-fenced the debt owed to the IPPs up to July of 2023. And we are negotiating with them to pay over time. That negotiation is far advanced. In fact, we have concluded with 4. 2 of them we're still negotiating. A meeting is actually scheduled today for 10 o'clock to meet one of them to try and conclude on a few knotty issues that have bedeviled the discussion. Following that, as of August to date, all the IPPs are paid in full. Current ECG. Why? Because the cash waterfall mechanism that he made it look as if he was there who introduced it, which was actually introduced in 2018 under the Akufo-Addo administration. In fact, it was during their era that they were looking at faces. Oh, this guy chased my girlfriend last week. I'm not going to pay him.
That was a joke?
Oh, no, of course it's a joke.
Okay.
The discriminatory payments was during their era. When we came, we said it cannot be that ECG, which then generates the revenue for paying everybody in the value chain, sits there and decides who to pay at and when. So we introduced the cash waterfall mechanism to say that, yes, you are not generating enough to pay all the invoices, but at least everybody should get something to keep them operational, whilst we work to improve your own efficiencies to generate more revenue to pay. So we introduced the cash waterfall mechanism that is based on some percentage allocations for all the sector players. Then the Ministry of Finance tops up. But the payments to the IPPs were not regular. Okay, so in August or July, we realized that, look, we need to review the cash waterfall mechanism and bring in some better efficiency. So we said to ourselves and the committee that do a 2-tiered system so that at least payments to the foreign IPPs is current. And so a $43 million invoice was agreed amongst all of them. And ECG pays it religiously on month-on-month basis from August to date. The tier 2 is what includes the local IPPs and the SOEs. They then are given percentages as per the agreed formula that has been approved. WAPCO's fee, which was paid through GMPC, was part of tier 2. So to avert the intermittent threats that come up every now and then, what we have decided as of last week is to move the WAPCO payment into tier 1 so that they are categorized as part of the foreign IPPs to pay them regularly. The local IPPs and SOEs, because they are state-owned, they cannot threaten government. But we recognize that they need to be operational.
Yeah.
And so whatever monies that ECG generates after paying the IPPs and the remainder is shared amongst them, the Ministry of Finance then tops up to ensure that none of them is what affected. How do you then, in the long term, provide some financial sustainability into the sector? It's a complete reform of ECG, which we all recognize. Okay? And government is working on that to ensure that ECG is reformed to generate sufficient enough revenue to pay everybody in the value chain. You know the digital revolution that is taking place there. Is it an event? No. It's a process. And it will take time because of the wide network that they cover, and the limited investment that they have. Because remember, if you've signed IPPs that 35% of your revenue
wrap up for me.
goes for power that you do not need, that ipso facto puts you in the negative. Who caused it? Mr. Mahama and his lot.
Yes, but
Yeah,
like
so-
you yourself
so I'm
have
saying,
said,
yeah,
you came into government to solve our
absolutely, and
problems
I've
not to
outlined.
refer to the problems that have been created
But
by
they are
previous
speaking.
governments.
That's what irks me the most. They talk as if to say, and Mr. Mahama, I heard him last week saying that Akufo-Addo is deferring the Dumso problem until he comes, in the very unlikely event that he comes. How is the Dumso deferred? How is it deferred?
Is there Dumso?
He says, but is there? Dumso as we know it, right? Last Saturday, Kofi Mental, my good friend of Imani, said we have Dumso Tiko, Dumso bus, and Dumso double decker. He says what we encountered in one day, or take two, was Dumso Tiko. I'll grant him that. But during Mr. Mahama's era, it was Dumso double decker. We slept in darkness for 4 years.
Are you wrapping up?
Yes, I'm wrapping up. So I'm saying to assure the Ghanaian that look, we've rolled out solutions to deal with the issues, and we are going to work on it assiduously to ensure that that happens.
All right.
Dumso is not back.
All right. Thank you.
You see,
Thank you.
Nah.
Ediji, I want us. I want us to
think
move on.
there is a need to rebut to the claim. Is
All
it
right.
not curious? Is it not curious?
Please keep it short.
That
for me.
Akufo-Addo, who led Kumipreko against the implementation of value-added tax, today is not only taxing sanitary pads, but it's also taxing your electricity. And you have the audacity to defend this. Shameful. That is what this is. Look, you have overburdened the ordinary Ghanaian. As for political decisions, when they came to power in 2018, they decided that they would take a political decision not to increase tariff on electricity. And so if you read the FTI consulting report on the PDS matter, they state that singular decision is what forced the change of the bank guarantee to insurance. It's there. That was a political decision.
Okay.
So political decisions are taken anytime, either to resolve a problem, make things better for Ghanaians. And the John Mahama administration cannot be faulted. What is not in doubt is that the law was never implemented.
Okay.
Akufo-Addo decided, together with Baumia, to impose additional value-added tax on electricity consumption.
All right, Ediji.
That is the
Thank
issue.
you. Thank you.
All these
Thank you, Ediji.
extraneous material do
All right.
not
You've made your
answer
point.
the suffering that Ghanaians are going
You've made your
through.
point. Thank you so
Adepa,
much.
Your
I'd
people
like
in
us to move on to
Sekondi
the
are
next.
watching you
I'd like
this
us to move
morning,
on to the next
and you are
topic.
happy,
All right.
laughing,
So
imposing additional tax on
we
them.
are
That's
aware
your
that
own cup
the
of tea.
Controller and Accountant General, Mr. Kwesi Kwening-Bosompim, has picked forms to contest for the Akim Suejo seat. Now, the minority in Parliament say no.
After Kumipreko.
The MP for South Dai, Honourable Roxanne Nelson Dafia-Mekpo, has actually filed a lawsuit against him, saying that he should not be allowed to contest. In fact, he's seeking a declaration in the court of law that the defendant, who is the Controller and Accountant General, is a civil servant and therefore cannot contest in the NPP parliamentary primaries while still holding his office as the Controller and Accountant General. Now, he has in turn spoken about this, referring to Article 195 in the Constitution. If we could just play his voice where he refers to Article 195 and the reason he's going ahead to contest for the seat. Let's play the voice and then we'll come back to the studios to first talk to Ediji, who has had a lot to say on this matter.
The PFM law, and is there, and he said the president shall appoint the Controller and Accountant General in accordance with Article 195 of the Constitution. Okay, and that was the basis for the appointment. And no civil servant is appointed on based on Article 195.
Now, he says no civil servant is appointed on the basis of Article 195 as his defense for going ahead to file for a political office while he's a civil servant, or he says he's not. Ediji, is he a civil servant?
The distinction between civil servants and public servants is one that is done in a very disingenuous manner. The Supreme Court has in two different cases brought clarity to this matter. One is the Clocksack Attorney General, Head of Civil Service decision. That was a decision that her ladyship, Sofa Akufo, gave. And in that decision, the court was clear that once you are a civil servant and you do overt, in fact, the court uses the word overt political activities, you must cease forthwith. Now, there is another test, functionality. The functionality test is really about the role that you are playing. The auditor or the controller, is not an ordinary servant of the Republic. The controller is a countervailing force within our democratic structure. That is, to ensure proper financial accountability. And that is why they call him controller and accountant general. And the whole idea is that the function he's performing, because it is so critical, if it doubles in overt political activities, it would, as it were, destroy the neutrality test of the office. And so if you look at the decision in the Clocksack matter, the Supreme Court had to use different set of tests to come to the conclusion why a civil servant should not. Now he says that because his office is one that flows from Article 195, he is permitted to do whatever. First of all, the Office of Special Prosecutor is created under Article 190 and it flows up to 195. You can't say that the Special Prosecutor, simply because it's appointed by the President pursuant to Article 195, it requires that he can do politics. The Auditor General flows within the same, structure. And that is why, if you look, in 2009, PCRP Ofori challenged a certain decision then and had to do with the Auditor General. When the matter went to the Supreme Court said, look, even though the constitutional provision on the appointment, of the Auditor General did not have a provision even as to how he should be removed, the court will read into the Constitution a particular provision, which is Article 146, so that the Auditor General will have the same terms of condition as a justice of the Court of Appeal. And that is why, for instance, the controller cannot just be removed on your whims, except on stated misbehavior, just as for the removal of a justice of the Superior Court. And so, the claim by this particular controller that he is a public servant, and for that matter, he can just do politics. In the PCRP Ofori decision, the Supreme Court drew two distinctions. A certain category of public servants who can do politics. So, for instance, the Honorable Ijapa Mensah is a public servant, qua public servant. He's also a member of parliament, qua public servant. So what it means is that Honorable Ijapa, with that category of officers, because his appointment does not flow from 195, so he can do overt politics. A minister of state can do overt politics. But once his appointment flows from Article 195, it means that the governing law flows from Article 190. So it's 190, 191, 192, 194, up to 195. All those categories of officers are precluded from engaging in acting. And the sound policy rationale is that you do not want to see your Auditor General, for instance, holding NPP flag on a campaign platform. You do not want to see the person who has responsibility on financial accountability to be seen openly holding NPP flag. And so, in the superior wisdom of the framers of the 1992 Constitution, they categorized. And that clarity the Supreme Court brought in the PCRP Ofori decision. And so we need to appreciate. I think that even where he had gotten to, he needs this biblical verse that says that all things can be lawful, but not everything is wise to do. Mr. Controller and Accountant General, your position is a very sensitive position in the constitutional architecture of this republic. And that is why, having made a decision that you want to do overt politics, common sense should dictate to you what you should do, not legalese.
Now, before I speak to Honorable, I need to ask you, being a lawyer, this case is before the court, but are we right, or are we within the law to be discussing this on television while it's before the court?
Well, it depends. It's a matter that provoke a lot of public
interest.
Sentiment.
Yeah.
And these matters go to the very core of our constitutional democracy.
And so
30 years of it is
okay.
too short a time to have a situation where we'll be put in this particular tight,
All right. In that case, Honorable, what's your party position on this?
To be honest, I have not followed this story closely. Because last week when it came up, I was out of the jurisdiction. And so the early part of the week, I heard it on one of the social media portals that my good friend Roxanne Dafiamapo has brought an action at the Supreme Court against the Controller and Accountant General. That said, I've just been flipping through his statement of claim and also looking at the provisions of the Constitution relative to the basis of the action. Listening to Eduji, I am just wondering at what point, whether it is at the primaries level that he's expected to resign. Because I'm not so sure whether he can go into election 2024 in the event that he wins the primaries as the Controller and Accountant General. Right? He has to resign at some point. As to whether it's before the primaries or after, I'm not so sure. It would seem to me that it is only when he becomes a candidate that he will be deemed to be in the position where making a call on him to resign would be legitimate.
Yes, but there's a Supreme Court
at this
case
point,
which says
that's why I said I haven't followed it closely.
Okay.
I haven't read those decisions.
Okay.
So let the Supreme Court decide on this one, whether he contesting, at the point of his filing to be a candidate without more meets the test of.
Okay.
You get what I mean?
Gotcha.
Otherwise, I think
you feel it's a little early.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Let me read some messages coming in now. Honorable Suini says, now your question allows for education on two clear things. The insensitive political decision of this government to implement a law that, like the death penalty, has never been implemented by any government. If this government is minded without consideration to implement laws that are passed, then let the president execute prisoners on death sentence and blame those who passed the law.
You see,
then he says point number 2.
Let me respond to him.
He says point number 2. Let me finish reading his message.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Okay. I don't think I should read points number 2.
You see,
that's from Honorable Sweeney.
I suspect.
There are more messages that I would like to read.
I suspect that this law, when it was passed by President Mahama, was a condition of the IMF.
You suspect?
I suspect. Because hold on.
You
It was
suspect.
2013,
But
2014.
Mahama went to IMF in 2014.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
but
you are
of
saying
course,
the law was passed.
Unfortunately, that's all time will allow us.
No, that's fine.
That's all time will allow us. I was going
but
to
I'm
read
saying-
a message in favor of your submission.
Please go ahead.
But I've
Look
closed
at
it
him,
because you started
you
talking.
see
You
him,
didn't.
oh.
you didn't
Oh,
let-
read it.
So I
Read
have closed the portal. But thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen.
We will
That's all our
we will have
time.
occasion
That's
to
all
do
our
that.
time.
Government
That's all our
should
time.
consider-
Thank you
You
so much,
pass the
gentlemen,
law.
for
Government
coming
should
here.
whatever reason
We've been
or
talking
political-
about the VAT imposition on residential consumers, and we've also been talking about the Controller and Accountant General decision to run for public office or political office while still running his office as the Controller and Accountant General. I've been talking to Honorable Andrew Kofeja Mesa and Eduji Tamaklo. It's time for us to now cash out. If you haven't dialed *439#, you can do so now. And I have good news. If you are a Vodafone subscriber, you can also win today. If you are a Vodafone subscriber, you can also win today. So it's no longer an all MTN affair. So whether you are an MTN subscriber or a Vodafone subscriber, you are free to dial *439# right now. And just by doing that, you stand a chance of winning 1,000 Ghana cedis. All right, stay tuned. You're watching TV3 New Day. When we come back, we'll talk to Oreku, who is live from Abidjan with reactions after the Ghana-Cape Verde game yesterday. Stay tuned.